been here going on 2 years, and this is their first spring ball. Same thing with some players, in their first spring ball. So we can't take anything for granted. That really was somewhat or fairly inconsistent across college football last year, as well as in our own conference. So we just got to make sure that we go through everything in detail so we're all on the same page about expectations and standards. Um, Obviously, some things that we want to get accomplished is confidence, chemistry, and leadership, probably big picture deals, offensive ball security, defensive ball disruption. We always want to take time to teach situational football and go through that in detail so we're all on the same page. And then we really want to create, the way I describe it, a 2.5 deep on defense, a 2.5 deep on offense, and a 2.5 deep on special teams. So what I mean there is, say at defensive end, you got two positions. You really want to feel confident that you have five players that you feel really good about, a first team, a second team, and then a fifth swing guy. That's really at the minimum of what you would want, pretty much at every position, especially when you're talking about a 2.5 deep. Just so make sure everybody understood what I was talking about there, and that's offense, defense, and special teams. Academically, we've done some really good things. We had 29 student athletes earn academic All Big Ten in 2020. Had a team GPA of a 3.37. We had 86 guys with a 3.0 or higher, 37 guys with a 3.5 or higher, and we had 5 guys with a 4.0. So I want to continue building on that. From a physical standpoint, it's the biggest team that we have had. We're 4 pounds heavier than both the 2016 team and the 2020 team. Our team average weight is 241 pounds, essentially. We do have some positional changes I wanted to make you guys aware of. Sebastian Constantini from cornerback to safety. He's a guy that's really, doing some nice things for us. Got tremendous testing numbers. We feel like that's going to get him more reps in practice and hopefully a role on special teams as well. Zariah Fisher from linebacker to defensive end. We had recruited Zariah knowing that he could play linebacker, but also thinking that, he could be a swing guy based on his length and athleticism to defensive end. He's excited about that. We're excited about that. Alex Furmanek, who's had a great offseason, came in as a linebacker, has moved to defensive end, and now has moved to defensive tackle. Put up some crazy numbers in the weight room testing last week, and continues to do well. We're really excited about him. And then Dominic DeLuca from safety to linebacker. Some of these positional changes could be short term. We'll revisit them after spring and summer camp. But again, that was an opportunity for Dom DeLuca, a guy that we're excited about. Was Mr. PA in the state last year, but an opportunity for him to get more reps in practice as well. Obviously, the hires of Mike Yursich, Ty Howell, and Anthony Poindexter, feel really good about all three of those moves that we made in the offseason. Feel like not only have they jumped in with both feet, from a football perspective, but also culturally have been great fits as well. I've known Anthony Poindexter for a long time, and I've tried to hire him on several occasions. So this worked out really well. Mike Yursich, I think you guys know we've been involved, with Mike for the last couple of years. And then obviously, we were able to interview Ty Howell for over a year on our staff, and been really impressed with him. With Ty, it kind of leads me into the next point. Is pretty cool right now that we got 6 lettermen, Penn State football lettermen on our staff, with Terry Smith, Ty Howell, Deion Barnes, Wendy Laurent, Alan Zamitis, and Todd Kolka. So really cool. We got 6 of those guys in our program that can provide tremendous information and insight from a historical, from a tradition perspective. I'm excited about having those guys. So appreciate everybody's time again. Excited about getting out there for the first day today. The weather's a little deceiving because the sun is bright and beautiful, but it's still a little bit chilly. But we're really looking forward to getting out there.
Tyler Donahue, and then we will go to Bob Flounders.
Hi, James. Good to see you.
Hey, Ty. How are you, man?
I'm doing well. Wanted to get into the quarterback room with Mike Yurcich a bit. You mentioned hiring him. Big part of that is elevating that QB room. What have you seen through a couple months here? What is your anticipation for what can be accomplished back on the practice field? And what's the challenge, obstacle involved with only having 3 scholarship quarterbacks at this moment?
Yeah, so Mike's done a nice job. Obviously, you look at his history, not only on offense, but to your question specifically at the quarterback position. So that was a big part of that. Obviously, 2 years ago, obviously won a lot of games with Sean. There was a lot of buzz and excitement about what he was doing, and we want to build on that. And then obviously, being able to evaluate, coach, and develop both Taquan and Bayou's going to be important. I also think there's some opportunities as well for us to still kind of look into the transfer market, from a competition standpoint, from a depth standpoint, from a lot of different perspectives. But it's got to be the right fit, and it's got to make sense from a lot of different levels. But I know Mike's really excited about it. I know our student athletes are really excited about it. We've taken a very aggressive approach this whole off season, from what we're allowed to do from an NCAA and from a Big Ten perspective. And I expect us to go out and practice like a veteran team. We've been able to keep a lot of the terminology the same, in Penn State's offense and what we want to do moving forward. And I think that's helped us. So, we're in a good place. I think I expect us to practice really well, but I think obviously, come the end of the spring, we'd like to have a pretty good idea of who our first team, second team, and third team quarterbacks are. And then also, what do we need to do, whether it's transfer portal or whatever it may be. Do we feel like we need to go out and bring another guy in? Because you'd like to be at 5 scholarship quarterbacks all the time. I think you can get away with 4. Three gets a little dicey. So we'll see how that goes, and we'll communicate all those things, kind of throughout our program.
Greg Pickle, Penn Live. Ben Jones, you're on deck.
Hi, James. How you doing?
Good, Greg. How are you, man?
I'm doing well, thanks. Hey, I'm curious what your plans are for the blue-white game this year, if you'll have one, and if not, what you'll be able to get with that 15th practice if it's not a scrimmage like that.
Yeah, I think there's some discussions right now going on with that at the university level, with our administration as well as the administration on campus in Old Main, and just making sure we're all on the same page. I think for us, our entire focus is on what can we do to best position us for next year. We want to try to be able to get back as close to normal as we possibly can for next season. And I think a lot of things are trending in that direction, nationally as well as within our state. So that's kind of our focus. From a football strictly perspective, the things that I'm most comfortable speaking on, we will, on our Fridays and Saturday practices, we will scrimmage. We will, get those opportunities. In some ways, a final practice or final scrimmage, however you want to put it. A lot of times, those things in such a public setting like that are pretty vanilla. This would allow us to have, a true 15th practice where we're putting everything out there from an evaluation standpoint as well. But there's still some conversations that are still being worked through, and we hope to make an announcement here sooner rather than later. From a football perspective, from an athletic department perspective, and then obviously always aligned with President Barron and Old Main. So we'll wait till that's announced from that perspective.
Ben Jones, statecollege.com. T. Frank, you're on deck.
Hey, James, how's it going?
Good, Ben. How are you?
Good. You've got 6 guys on staff that are either in their first or second year with you. Coming off the season that you had, how do you kind of balance having your finger on the pulse of all those different rooms without over-managing at the same time?
Yeah, I think for me, I've always been pretty upfront that I am going to have my fingers all over things and be a micromanager early on. I don't want to be. So once I'm comfortable that those rooms are being run, or those areas are being run the way we need them to be run, then I step away. And but early on, I want to make sure that I understand what's going on, and that they understand, my perspective as well, and then also culturally how we do things here at Penn State, and hopefully, through all those conversations and discussions and dialogue, that we can speed up the adjustment time and the adjustment process here. So, that's kind of the nature of college football now, and we'll embrace it. Fortunately, we've been able to make some hires that either have some understanding of what Penn State's about, have been around me and my staff, or just people that we've had relationships with for a long period of time. So all those things help, but I think you're exactly right, Ben. We can't take anything for granted, especially when you magnify the fact that, again, even the guys that we hired last year, this is their first time going through spring football.
T. Frank Carr, ESPN Radio, and Neil Rudell, you're on deck.
Hey, James, good to see you again.
You as well. I probably should have asked you this before, but what do you want me to address you as? Is it
T. Frank is fine. That's
Frank.
what most people call me.
All right, just making sure. Thank you.
I want to go off what you just were talking about there at the end. Seeing as you didn't have spring ball last year, paraphrase something that Dwight Galt said last week. He said he was pleased with the winter conditioning and that players had made up a lot of the ground, if not all the ground, they had lost from last year. Do you think spring ball can do that for you on the football side of the program? And how do you quantify something like that of making up for lost ground or making up for lost instruction time?
Yeah, I think it has to. You have no other choice. If you look again nationally, and not only in our own conference, you look at the teams who had either all of spring ball or some of spring ball. There's a pretty strong correlation, with last year. So yeah, I think we're definitely approaching it that way. Same thing with camp. We're going to have to take a similar approach when we get to summer camp, because we did not have a traditional summer camp last year as well. So yeah, we're approaching it, as if this is a tremendous opportunity to build our team from the ground up, like we always do, in more of a normal kind of routine and a normal calendar and a normal model. But again, to your point, there are some differences there, and we really should have took last year as what an unbelievable opportunity to learn under very challenging circumstances, but also an opportunity to learn and get better.
Neil Rudell, Altoona Mirror, Rich Scarcella, you're on deck.
Hi, James.
Hi, Neil.
Since the last time we gathered, the Board of Trustees approved a substantial increase, for improvements, the Lash building. And I just wonder if you could describe, in general, the support that you feel from the board, former players in general, and Jay Paterno went on record as opposing it. I'm wondering whether you feel you have his support or how much relationship there.
Yep. I'm really excited about practice today, for spring ball. We're excited about that. We continue to, make strides, from a facility standpoint, and all the things that we feel like we need to do to continue building Penn State football, and what Penn State football means to the community, and what Penn State football means to the athletic department and the university as a whole. And the support has been great. Obviously, the decision to keep the project moving forward was great. I think the other thing, obviously, is this was voted and approved upon, I think, over a year ago. So it's great that we can continue making progress, and again, we're excited about getting out for spring ball practice today, and that's where our focus is. And looking forward to continue making progress really in every area, academically, athletically, socially, in every single area. We need to continue to compete.
Rich Scarcella, Reading Eagle, Donnie Collins, you're on deck.
Hi, James. How are you today?
Good, Rich. How are you?
I'm all right, thanks. Hey, two-parter. One, Dwight Gall last week was talking about last season about how motivated guys are. How motivated, how hungry did last season leave you? And secondly, will Noah Kane be able to practice this spring?
Yep. So with Noah, we think probably a second half of spring ball will get some work out of him. It's hard to predict how much. Obviously a lot can change over a 3-4 week period of time. So we'll see. I was out there, doing my old man workout, walking around campus and then around the practice facility, and saw him out there, with our trainers doing rehab and things like that. So we fully expect him back. When that is hard to say, Rich. The first part of your question, I lost my train of thought.
Go ahead, Rich.
Rich is muted still.
How about now?
I got you.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
I said Dwight last week talked about guys being motivated.
Oh, yeah.
How did last season leave you? How motivated, how hungry last season?
Yeah, I think in general, I'm always raring to go and really motivated. I think obviously last year, was an unbelievable opportunity to grow and learn and be challenged in a way that we've never been challenged before. With how the season went, with some of the off the field things that we were dealing with, from a flexibility standpoint, just a change of normal routine. So, in any situation, whether it's positive or whether it's adversity, you gotta grow from it and you gotta learn from it. And for me, I probably grew as much both personally and professionally as I have in 26 years of doing this. And that's how, to me, you should approach it every single year. There's tremendous lessons to be learned last year. You have to take the time to think about them, to study them, to be very honest with yourself and transparent. Same thing with the coaches and the staff and the players. We all have to do that. So I think people are really motivated, but for me, I wouldn't necessarily say it's a chip on the shoulder or anything like that, but there was tremendous lessons to be learned. And I look forward to taking all the success that we've had over the 9 previous years, and then also the challenges and adversity that was brought forth last year, and taking all those experiences and holistically, getting better, and using them to take the next step here at Penn State football. And today's one of those steps.
Donnie Collins, Scranton Times Tribune. Audrey, you're on deck.
Hey, James, good to see you again.
You as well.
What do you feel you need to see out of Christian and Taekwon this spring? And you mentioned earlier finding a fit at the position in the transfer portal. How difficult is that to find a quote unquote fit at the quarterback spot?
Well, I think it's challenging. I think first of all, we want to see Taekwon and Christian. We want to feel like that we could put those guys in a game and win with them. Based on what they do in practice, and there's still a lot of time between now and next season for them to do that. So that's going to be the emphasis in meetings and in practices and in scrimmages and those types of things. You just want to see them, taking steps every single day in how they go about their business. And then, again, from a transfer portal standpoint, again, it's about going out and finding a guy that can come in and compete and has some experience. And again, we'll see how that goes. But we're open to the topic, and we're open to discussing it. But we got to make sure that we're bringing the right person in here. Not only from an academic fit, but from a cultural fit, and also, from a competitive perspective as well. So we're not just going to bring somebody in to bring somebody in. We got to make sure that it all makes sense and everything's been communicated and understood.
Audrey Snyder, The Athletic. Corey Geiger, you're on deck.
Hey, James, staying with the quarterbacks there. Do you anticipate Taekwon getting any first-team reps this spring, just because he hasn't had that experience, maybe if it's a day off for Sean or something like that? Or how do you kind of envision that playing out this spring?
Yeah, we want to get, all those guys, reps. It's all going to be based on how practice goes. If somebody puts themselves in a position to earn more reps, with whatever group it is, then we'll look at that. But right now we just want those guys all to go out there and have a chance to get better and build their own confidence, but also build the confidence in the coaching staff and their teammates. That they're ready. When their number is called. But we'll see how that plays out. For me to sit here and say who's going to get reps with what group, we'll just see how that plays out. It's all going to be based on production. And progress that the guys are making on the field and in the meetings.
Corey Geiger, Nittany Sports Now. Joe Giuliano, you're on deck.
Hey, good afternoon, James.
Hey, Corey.
I'm hoping you can indulge me here because basketball is in the news today. Football obviously brings in a great deal of money for Penn State. Given that you have a self-sustaining athletic department, what are the challenges of making sure that football gets all of the resources that it needs, while also maybe making sure that men's basketball can get the resources it needs to succeed at a high level?
Yeah, I can't speak on other sports and those types of things. But obviously at Penn State and specifically with Penn State football, we understand, the responsibility that Penn State football has, again, on campus, in the community, and within the athletic department. But we understand that, obviously, other sports and the magnitude of success the other sports have had here, you can go on and on the success that other sports have had on the field. We're all in this thing together. So obviously the more programs that have an opportunity to be successful at Penn State, we want to feel like that we help in that, and that we play our role and play our part in that. But besides that, those questions probably aren't specifically for me. But I want to make sure that we're doing everything we possibly can at Penn State football to be successful for our program and for our players. But I also understand there's also a responsibility to the rest of the athletic department and for the community and campus as well.
Joe Giuliano, Philadelphia Inquirer. Mike Gross, you're on deck.
Hi, James.
Hey, Joe. How are you?
Good, thanks. How are you? Good. You mentioned you've lost, obviously, some very good talent at defensive end, and you talked about getting back up to 5. And I wondered what kind of role Nick Tarburton would play in that competition, and how have you seen his progress in the first 2 years in your program?
Yeah, I'm a big Nick Tarburton fan for a lot of different reasons. How he's gone about his business. The whole family, mom and dad, have been unbelievably supportive. The kid has, really faced a decent amount of adversity. Has not been, healthy, knock on wood, consistently since he's been here. He's had an unbelievable off season for us right now, not only from a health perspective, but from a physical perspective, from a leadership perspective as well. We're expecting him to have a significant role on our defense and on our team. This spring ball will be really important for him, but he's had a tremendous off season, and we're really excited about him. He's another one of those guys that we discussed earlier, very similar to, probably very similar to a Zariah Fisher that we recruited as a big linebacker that could grow into a defensive end possibly. We'll just see how the genetics work out once he gets on campus and how his body reacts to the strength and conditioning program and the nutrition program and all those types of things. And here he is. Here he is in a position to have a big year for us, and we need him to, based on the points that you brought up earlier, Joe. But I think I think the biggest point for him is he's as healthy as he's been since he's gotten on campus.
Mike Gross, LMP News. New Bias Wilborn, you're on deck.
Good afternoon, James. How are you?
Good, Mike. How are you, man?
Good, thanks. when you were talking earlier about how much you learned from the last year and all of that, it sort of reminded me of how many times you shared with us about the situation being separated with your family. And I wonder if, to the extent that you're comfortable, you could kind of update us on where that stands and how you feel about that.
Yeah, that was a big thing. I always knew I was a family guy. Obviously, going through last year, it magnified that. We're in a better situation now. Still not what I would describe as ideal or back to normal. So my family is back in town, but we are separated. So we have like an apartment over the garage, and that's where I've been staying. About the most contact I have is I'll go over when I get home from work, and I stand at a different window in the house with my hood up and my mask up until someone notices, and I usually scare the heck out of them, and they scream, and then we laugh, and then they slide my tray of food out the door. And I say thank you through the glass and take my tray of food up over the garage and eat dinner. But they're doing great. I think for them, it's been really good to get back in town and get a little bit of the normalcy of being back in their own bedrooms and those types of things. But yeah, we're still not back to normal, and I'm not completely sure when that will happen. Based on my family's circumstances. So we'll see how that goes. I appreciate you asking. I do appreciate you asking, but yeah, we're still not back to what I would describe as normal. And if anybody has any costumes or scary masks that you want to lend me, that's been pretty fun, scaring the heck out of my wife specifically, but also the girls.
New bias will born Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Nate Bauer, you're on deck.
James, what's it like to now? How you doing, man? By the way, man, good to see you as always. Hope we get to meet in person one day. But what's it like now not being the only one of 31 on campus with the new coaching hire, and you're also one of very few programs that has a African American head coach at basketball and football. What does all that mean to you?
Well, has it been announced yet, Nabais?
Yes. Well,
you're saying yes, and
I'm
looking at Chris Peterson, and Chris Peterson's going no.
Okay, well,
yeah, no, but I get it. Yeah. I obviously won't speak on the hire yet at this stage, but yeah, I think most importantly, Tobias, being able to hire the most qualified person, for Penn State and going through a broad, search. And I've had some conversations with Sandy about it. And I know that's what was important to them is to have a diverse, broad, comprehensive search. And then at the end of the day, hire the best person available. And then for me, if that person happens to be a person of color, then hopefully I can provide some perspective of what it's going to be like for them, what the town's like, the school, being at Penn State, all those things. I want to be a resource, obviously. And then I think it's great for the student athletes. I think it's great for the university as a whole. I know how important diversity is to President Barron and the administration. So if it happens to play out that way, then great. But ultimately, it's about hiring the best person for Penn State to help our basketball program take the next step. And back to the question that we had, earlier, about how great is it going to be, when football and basketball are both competing at an extremely high level and have an opportunity to make a significant impact in the community, on the economy, both in town with the hotels and restaurants, and the same thing, on our campus as well, and specifically in our athletic department. So whoever is hired, I look forward to partnering with them and helping them in any way I possibly can. No different than Russ Rose has done with me, or Erica Walsh has done with me, or Kale, or so on and so forth. We try to support all of us.
Nate Bauer, Blue White Illustrated. Frank Bonanni, you're on deck.
Hey, James. I have kind of a two-part question for you. The first is,
the progress or the development of last year's true freshman class, where you kind of feel like they are. You expressed some concern about their experience being under these, different circumstances. And then whether or not anything that you learned about how you handled them has been applicable to the early enrollees that you currently have on campus.
Yeah, so I think if I'm right here, I think we broke a school record last year with if you take the percentage of offense that was attributed to freshmen last year with Parker and Keandre and Kevon and Keziah and probably even Theo and a bunch of other guys in there. So we got to continue to build on that. Obviously there was a lot of things that went into last season that affected that. And obviously, we need to benefit from that experience this year. On top of that, we seem to be having more and more of these high school recruits that are planning on coming at mid-semester. So we got a large number of guys that came in at mid-semester, whether they're high school recruits or whether they're transfers or whatever it may be. So we got a youth-filled roster, but a much more experienced roster that we're depending on this year compared to last year. So I think it's going to be interesting to watch these guys take the next step this spring ball, and then be able to get feedback from their coaches as well as me about what they need to do over the summer to continue to progress and grow. And for us, again, back to that 2.5 deep of figuring out how many of these guys that just got here, that came in early or are returning from next year, are going to factor into that discussion. And then there's going to be a couple guys that, maybe this spring they're a little bit overwhelmed their first time on campus, but it will still lay a foundation to allow them to compete during summer camp based on going through this experience. So we'll see. It should be interesting. It should be fun. And we look forward to evaluating.
Frank Bodani, York Daily Record. John Petishnock, you're on deck.
Hi, good afternoon, James.
Hey, Frank.
Sean Clifford, such a drastic scenario of seasons from 19 to 20. Can you glean anything from the offseason, from how he handled the end of last year, as to what you're getting from him coming into this spring? Maybe how he's grown, anything different that stands out to you about his situation?
Yeah, so a couple things. I think, first of all, Sean's always been extremely driven, extremely motivated, and competitive. But you're exactly right. Where we were coming into last season and where we are coming into this season, is different. But it also creates a tremendous opportunity, and I think that's how Sean is approaching it. In a lot of different ways, and as we all know, there's a lot of factors. It's when you remove a Journey Brown, or you lose a Journey Brown, from your roster. We knew wide receiver going into last year, was going to be a big part, a big predictor in our success. With the lack of experience that we had returning at the position. All those things factored in, a change in offense, all those things. So I think Sean's motivated, but he's always motivated. He's a guy that prepares at an extremely high level. It's very, very important to him, and he's extremely competitive. I know, Coach. Coach Yursich has been very impressed with those things so far, but now it's time to translate it and transfer it to the field. But I do think the experience gained at the wide receiver position, I do think the experience gained at the tight end position, and also the running back position is going to help. Is going to help Sean too.
John Petishnock, Football Letter. Mark Brennan, you're on deck.
Hey, good afternoon, James, and thank you for your time today.
You as well.
You mentioned having 6 lettermen on staff, specifically with Alan Zamitis. Can you share anything about the conversations you had with Alan and how that came together? And then with respect to all the lettermen, what does it say about the program that they want to return to their alma mater and be actively involved in the future and success of the program?
Yeah, I think it's really important. I think those guys can provide a unique experience to our players. They can have a conversation that is very different than anybody else because they've lived it. I think there's tremendous value in that. It's also a place that these guys are really passionate about. So whether it's with our current players, whether it's with recruits, those are things that are going to be discussed and be discussed in detail, and it's going to come from a unique perspective, and it's going to obviously be coupled with a tremendous amount of passion for Penn State and what this place has meant to them. So those things are really, really important to us and very, very important to me. With Alan, he had worked a couple camps in the past, so we had gotten to know each other a little bit. And then, obviously when these positions opened up, Alan was able to reach out and we were able to talk in more depth about some things and what might make sense for him and his family. And, the more I got to know him and then did my research and talked to a bunch of former players that were connected with him and that he played with and how they felt about him and the type of player and the type of leader he was. I talked to Wayne Sebastianelli about him as well, about his experience with Allen as well. So there's tremendous value in that. And when you can find guys that this is where they want to be and they're passionate about it and can bring that unique lens to our program, it's a win-win.
Mark Brennan, Lions 247, and Daniel Gallen will have our last question.
James, you have some turnover on the interior of your offensive line. What are your options there, specifically at center, where you had Menet for a few years there? Thanks.
Yeah, so we feel good about kind of the guys that we got to work with and the guys that have had some reps in there. We got some pretty experienced players, although to your point, obviously losing a great one like Michael Menet and Will Fries in more of a swing role between tackle and guard. But when you take a Des Holmes and a Anthony Wiggin and a Miranda and a Dawkins and a Scruggs and a Wormley, and then even some guys like Traore as a redshirt freshman and Nate Bruce as as a true freshman that graduated early. Zayler's a guy that we've been very impressed with. So we got a good group of guys in there, different experience level, different eligibility. But we got I think a pretty healthy group of names in there to come in and compete this spring and try to give us a little bit, clearer picture. A guy like Kate Knutson and Conagus are also guys that have earned a lot of respect around here about how they've gone about their business. So it should be exciting. And then, I think some of our tackles provide some swing opportunities as well. So we'll see how all those things play out.
Daniel Gallen, Penn Live.
Hey, James. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Doing good.
Love the stash, by the way.
Thank you. Quarantine project.
It's awesome.
You added a couple transfers along the defensive line this offseason. What was a priority with getting those guys, and what do you like about those guys who you are bringing in there?
Well, I think the biggest thing for us, you guys have brought up the quarterback position and a lot of positions, but really for us, it's about creating as much competition as we can. At the positions, whether it's at the starting position or whether it's for depth or whatever it may be, and those guys provide that. Those guys provide that. So we're excited to see what they're going to do. Obviously, we call him AK Ebikidi at defensive end and Tangelo at defensive tackle, and seeing what those guys are going to be able to do. From a competitive standpoint at both D tackle and defensive end, and then Johnny Dixon obviously in the secondary as well. So, so far so good. Those guys have been extremely impressive in winter workouts and in the weight room. It's also interesting to talk to them about them comparing and contrasting to the programs that they've come from in terms of just how we do things, in terms of the winter workouts, in terms of strength and conditioning and all those types of things. But we think all three of those guys are going to have an opportunity to compete and compete at a high level for us. And we'll continue to look at that, nationally, across the board, if we can find some guys that make sense for us to bring in at a number of different positions.
Thank you very much, Coach.